The Nigerian Labour Congress last week declared a two-day warning strike over current hardships caused by the removal of fuel subsidy. In compliance to the directive, the ever-busy Federal Secretariat in the heart of the nation's capital is devoid of this usual rush of workers. But some civil servants were still at their desks carrying out their official duties. Abraham Hussein is one of the civil servants who came to work despite the ongoing strike.
It's, the way you are expecting. We are expecting that at least everybody should be at home. So we will just come, we'll see people around. Work is going on. Anybody that says work is not going on is lying.
Are Hassan, a legal practitioner, describes the action of the NLC as unfortunate, especially at a time where the country is dealing with several challenges. He believes the action will further cripple the country's economy and calls for a rethink by NLC.
The NLC, at this critical point in time, will lose sleep over issue of palliatives, where we know the economic doldrum and the problems that are headed are there. The calling for this strike is ill-timed, ill-motivated and political.
The Minister of Labour had called for a meeting to resolve issues raised by the union, but while the Trade Union Congress attended the meeting, NLC chose to shun it and directed affiliate unions to join the strike.
It is said a strike has never been the right way to addressing national issues. The Nigerian Labour Congress must consider embracing dialogue with the government to addressing the many challenges. Helen Osamide-Ekins, TVC News, Abuja.
So there you have it now, some reflections of how the national strike, or what was to be a national strike, how it went down in Lagos and in Abuja. From that report, we saw that in Lagos, for example, many parts of the state, carried on, businesses opened as usual. Even the banks that said they would join in the strike, Ibrahim, yep. Many banks were open. Another report online, a paper goes on to say that in a particular bank on the island, customers had gone on there. The security guard said, no, we're not opening. But then he went inside to get directions, from his bosses and came back to allow customers to come in. But at Alausa, for example, that's, of course, the state secretariat. Civil servants carried on working as usual, even though the Tin Can port and the Apapa port, where we understand were locked, as we see in Sharon, the senior correspondent's report, who covered that area extensively. So it's a different grill, so to speak, in Abuja, as we also saw in that report, with activities, partially suspended at the Federal Secretariat in Abuja. And, this also kinds of reflect across several parts of the country, with some states complying and some states not complying.
Well, it's expected to be like that, especially when a move is not really popular among the people. Fine, Nigerians, they understand that a lot of things are happening. They are really, grueling under the removal of fuel subsidy. They do not actually want what is happening, but they understand the fact that it's a new administration. It's just 3 months. Today makes it 100 days. This administration has taken, over the reins of this country, the reins of power in this country. So if all of this are, put together, then they will realize that, just like what one of the respondents said, he said the strike is ill-timed, ill-motivated, and political. And that's the way some people see it. Imagine someone on the street saying that there are cars, there are lorries, everything, the road is busy, and we did not even know that there is strike. He left his home for to come to Ikeja Electric to find out, to lodge complaints, and they said that they are on strike. That who sent them message? That's the way he said it, to quote him. So I feel that it's so for me. It's right to drive in your demands. It's also important that you sit down, you have a conversation with the government. Look at the TUC. The TUC is not joining the strike. They said they've been having conversation with the government, they've been dialoguing, and the federal government said they should give them 2 weeks to look at some of the demands on the table. And he said most of the policy, the policy thoughts of the federal government, is based on the dialogue they've been having with the federal government. Talking about the 11,000 CNG buses that will be rolled out, talk about the the palliatives, they're moving around, the state, talk about, some of the things, some of the policy changes that we're seeing that the federal government is trying, because a lot of mess had been created. Former Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, said that the CBN printed in 2015, they printed about, almost 22 trillion naira without backing it up, loaning the federal government. So that is one of the reasons why we are having the challenges we're facing. We're servicing our debts with almost 99% of our generated revenue. So all of these attendance issues are there. So I feel what the TUC is doing is, completely right. Have a conversation, have a dialogue. Not that you're now down tools and further worsening the plight of ordinary citizens. It's just something that I feel why it is correct to agitate, to drive in your demands and get the government to know that this thing is really biting hard. It's also very important that we also think, okay, instead of doing all of this, and at the same time we come back to a round table to have dialogue, then that's what you'll be doing later on. You shouldn't be putting the cart before the horse. It should always be the horse before the cart. In this case, having proper dialogue. That's the way I see it. But all the same, I feel the federal government needs to expedite actions. They need to get into well, I feel that they've been doing a lot, because a lot of things are happening at the same time, and we can't expect that everything will change overnight. And that's the way I see it, looking at it from my own perspective. And
in the Lagos example, for example, they say, or the workers there said they carried on with work as usual because some of the demands have been met by the Lagos state government. Met by the state government, and that might also be the rationale for the non-compliance in some states. And of course, as you said, the fact that there even appears to be divisions within the ranks of the labor because what is labor, or how will you now qualify or quantify this strike if the TUC, which is also influential in its own right, didn't participate in the strike? But of course the NLC has its affiliates, and before now the Maritime Union had already said they were going to join in the strike as a form of solidarity. Even banks as well as banks, all the banks, as well as lecturers, even in the higher institutions had said that they would join. But we will see how today goes. It's another day, and of course, by the way, NLC has also threatened that it will embark on an indefinite strike later in the month. Kemi, before you bring this to a close, let me quickly chip this in. Look at what Lagos State has done. They said a lot of their demands have been met. And what about the other state governments? What are they doing to cushion these effects? It's not just all about the federal government. Right, but it's all about what the state governments are doing to mitigate this impact. But then, of course, that states have, their various financial capacities. So, that might also be factored in how much states have. Yeah, that's where creativity comes in. But it's an ongoing conversation, and yes, speed is of the essence because, the welfare of, Nigerians are at stake, and the president has spoken to that effect. Nigerians are counting on the presidency for more interventions.